What's the weather like? Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Deeper Dive. Little Saturday action today. Not used to this. Usually off Saturday, working Sunday morning, but we're here. 4 games as well. Thank God. Thank God we're not getting these split. We'll have some big slates tomorrow, but we can cover a full 4-game slate for divisional round weekend. Glad to have you guys with us. I'm Dave Loughren, Loughy_D on Twitter, joined by Ben Rasa at JazzRaz DFS. As always, what's good, brother?
Yeah, man, big day. Big day. Obviously, yes, the NFL rules all, but just a great day of sports. I feel like I'm already halfway through my gamble. I started early this morning with our friends in Discord, sweating all sorts of stuff. So I'm already, warmed up, not gonna pull anything on this show. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Yeah, a little less eventful, little less eventful for me today. I take my daughter to gymnastics class. It's like 12 degrees out. I had to do more shoveling prior to that, right? Then we go to breakfast. Then I go and pick my car up from the dealership where I bought it, from the service center. Didn't know the service center was closed. It's 30 minutes from my house, closed on Saturday. Turns out it's a Jeep Grand Cherokee, right? And like some of the controls stopped working. Turns out I need like a full new radio for it.
Suspicious.
Yeah, a center stack. You're familiar with center stacks, right?
I don't know anything about cars.
No, that's the thing. I don't know what a center stack is either with this stuff. So they're like, yeah,
It's all a scam.
this is what you need. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to be like, well, I think you're overcharging me.
Yeah.
Because what am I supposed to say? Like, that doesn't sound right.
Hey, oh, you need a new Johnson rod. It's like, well, I don't know. Don't tell me though you weren't sweating out the African soccer plays from this morning. I know you had it on the phone. Little Burkina Faso action.
I saw Mayo hit you up on that.
What a game.
Yeah.
What a game.
No, so now I get the car back, but now they have to order the parts. I got to bring it back. It's just a mess, man. There's snow all over the place. Yeah. So if you figure anything out, you figure out that I don't need a new radio plus a center stack, please let me know, Ben. And maybe somebody in chat can tell me. We got sharp people. I bet there's people that work on cars, maybe even Jeeps. Tell me, like the dials for the control, for volume and stuff stopped working, and then the heated seats on the touchscreen, I would hit it and then it would just disappear. And then like the presets on the seats and all that stuff just stopped working. He's like, oh, it's your center stack. That's what I thought the same thing.
Well, yeah. It sounds like you need a win today.
Sounds like we do. Yeah.
It sounds like you need to win one of these GPPs.
Yeah, so. The guy calls me and he's like all set, like all whatever. He was actually very nice. The guy that at the front. I was like, so worst case scenario is what you're telling me. He goes, yeah, pretty much. So yeah, another win in my book, man. But we're talking football today. Enough about me. Happy to have you guys with us. If you haven't done so yet, take 1 single second. This is all. Atone for your sins here on the Deeper Dive. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. All that stuff goes a long way. What do you think is feasible today? 500's feasible, right? I know it's a weird game slate, but 500 should be locked in, right?
2,000, baby. No, we're breezing past 500. This is the playoffs. We got playoff likes coming in. We got the best of the best in chat. We're ready to go. Yeah, we're gonna do 500. Let's go 500 before we even get to the Sunday games. Like, we're going 500 midway through this show.
Okay, I love it.
Right now, just let's get it out of the way. Hit the like. Let's get it rolling. I'm gonna bring some energy. I might like crash 15 minutes into the show, but I'm very excited to talk about these games.
Everybody talking shit on Jeep. The truth is, I love the Jeep. I love it, and I would buy another one. I would, but it is pissing me off for sure.
Yeah,
it is. I'm gonna legitimately, Mike. Can I ask you a favor? Can I ask a huge favor of you, completely unrelated to this show?
Yeah, sure.
If you find relevant comments on suggestions for what I should do, can you pull them and send them to me in DMs? Yes. Thank you.
We missed all the super chats for Lofty's Jeep recommendations.
Brother, Chad has helped me with stuff before. I'm telling you, Chad has helped me with stuff before. Saved me money, legitimately. Anyway, let's talk about it. So we got 4 games. Houston, Baltimore, Green Bay, San Francisco today. Tampa, Detroit, Kansas City, Buffalo tomorrow. Any weather standing out to you that you go, ooh, because last week, like, we knew that Kansas City should come in there and stomp them, right? Minus 400 degrees at Arrowhead Stadium. Ridiculous that people were asking people to cancel that game too. I mean, what have we become as a society at this stage? I understand postponing Buffalo because people are going to die getting to the stadium. That's a little bit different. But now you've got shovelers out there in Buffalo again. My assumption is it should be fine though. Like, I don't see any weather outside of a little bit of wind. And sure, like 15, 60 mile per hour wind in Baltimore. Nothing like last week. Am I wrong?
No, not to me. Again, I always just use like Odd Chopper as a reference point. I pull up the live odds screen and the totals are fine. Everything's healthy. There may be some weather here and there in San Fran or Baltimore, but nothing to freak me out. I'm not worried about it.
Let's talk about Houston. You told me on Wednesday's show, right, that you think Baltimore can lay the wood to them today.
I hope it's the one NFL bet I've made so far on a side.
Okay. You like Baltimore a lot today. The problem is, where do we go as far as Baltimore plays? We'll talk Houston first, but you know what, you're getting into like the $5,900 Gus Edwards and stuff. That doesn't always feel great. They got Dalvin Cook. I don't know. They moved elevated him to the active, whatever. We'll get into it. But with Houston, the one big thing here that we actually didn't know about earlier in the week is Noah Brown hit the IR, Ben. So you have no Tank Dell, right? No Noah Brown. Those are 2 guys that throughout the season went healthy because both of them had, random spurts being on and off the field, more Noah Brown than Dell. Both of them went on the field, were super productive, particularly Tank Dell, but Noah Brown had a few tournament winning games, like back to back. Now they're both out. So yeah, obviously Nico Collins is in play, but it's a tough matchup. You'd be paying the same price point for him as you would other expensive wide receivers. Throw Mike Evans in a dome against the terrible Detroit secondary into the mix. Ayuk is cheaper. Godwin is cheaper. Zay Flowers is cheaper. Diggs is the same price, but he hasn't exactly been great. And then you're getting into the John Mechie's, the Xavier Hutchinsons, the Dalton Schultz. So I guess on one hand you go, hey, they're definitely starved for quality pass catchers right now outside of Collins, but it's also a really tough matchup in Baltimore as 9.5-point dogs.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a team that I really want to target in a large capacity. It's only 4 games, 8 teams. I'm going to have some Houston players in the pool, but yeah, I don't like Houston in the spot. I'm not getting to Stroud. And you mentioned Nico Collins. Obviously, their top playmaker on the outside. Singletary, to me, can't be scripted out. Even if they get absolutely smoked, I still expect him to have 15 to 20 touches. Maybe some of them are converted into targets. I guess the question is, to me, where does Dalton Schultz fit in? To me, he's in no man's land for tight ends. And then Mechie and Woods are either of them punt plays. And for me, I think Singletary is the guy I have the most interest in, but I'm not sure I have any specific interest in any of Houston, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if I land on, if I need a running back and, I have sub 6K, I'm clicking in Singletary. If I need a wide receiver and I need a pay down option and I don't want to use Reynolds or Jamison Williams, maybe I'll look to a play like Mechie here and there, but those are more exceptions than rules for me. It's not like, all right, let me build with this and then fill out my lineups. It's more, this is where I'm landing. This is what the Sims are giving me. And I'm okay with some of it in the pool.
Yeah, totally understandable. I mean, it is. Look, if Stroud comes out here and puts up significant
I
numbers
mean,
against Baltimore, then I mean, seriously, we saw what he did last week against Cleveland, but we do know that that Cleveland team on the road, that what a Jekyll and Hyde defense we've seen from them all year, right? Home and road. I hate to act like, oh, what a big difference, because they're not even a team that plays in a dome, right? Like they're not, they don't have that real advantage, and they were playing remarkably well at home in cold weather or warm weather. I don't know what to make of it. I just know that all season, albeit a small sample size in NFL season, that they were a totally different identity at home and on the road. Stroud still came out there and crushed them. If he comes out there and does this today, I mean, he's entering the conversation of like, what type of quarterback are we looking at?
yeah, I mean, he's entering the conversation like if you redrafted the NFL, like he would go, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
like to the top basically, which is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Lamar Jackson 1-8 for his career over the last 3 years, sorry, as a 7.5 point favorite or more. I don't
He'll
think
be
you're
he'll be
deterred
two
by
and eight after today, and
I
then
don't
people
think
can
you're
reference
deterred
that.
by that. Yeah. With Houston, I'm having a tougher time getting to Nico. I'll tell you this much. I think I probably just have a little bit more interest in the value than you do, only because I don't think there's any value that I shouldn't say any, but I think from a value perspective, there's nothing that you go, man, I got to have all of that guy, right? Like, sure, Jameson, Khalif Raymond's out. Who knows what capacity Sam Laporta is playing? I know he played 80% of snaps last week, but he wasn't really that involved. 3 receptions on 3 targets for like 14 yards. I mean, the value here are at least guys that are going to be on the field, Ben. That's what I can. Like Xavier Hutchinson, John, you would imagine, and I know Robert Woods is back, that these guys, particularly with Noah Brown out, are going to be on the field. And there's also a good possibility that Houston needs to throw the football.
Yeah, they could be trailing. I worry about how many points they can put up, how efficient the offense is, and it's still Baltimore who are number one in the league in rushing. They can really strangle you with time of possession. It's just not, there's 4 games, and of the 8 teams, Houston is the team I have the least interest in.
Pulling up ownership too, for this slate. Looking at the stochastic ownership projections, just sorting by Houston here. So compared to a lot of these other teams, everything you're saying is right. Like the highest owned Houston player right now is 20% Devin Singletary. And then it really just not falls up. Nico 14. This is a 4 game slate. Dalton Schultz 14%, Mechie 12%, Xavier Hutchinson 3%. I think outside of Singletary, Mechie's probably my favorite play only because he's almost minimum salary. I think I'd have an easier time getting to him than Nico Collins, given what's around both of them as far as salaries go.
Yeah, and that's again, same thing. Like just where are they in the price points and how does that factor in? It doesn't mean I'm going to speak kind of for you. It doesn't mean that you think Mechie's the best player on Houston, that he's going to be the most involved,
Nope.
but it's the price point. And I totally understand that. But at the end of the day, even with 4 games, and we've seen even on 2 games, if you can eliminate, and I know Houston's going to be the team that's eliminated the most from people's pools or lineups, I should say. That can be an effective build. And for me, even if I go heavy on Lamar, like a QB +2 or something, I'm not really necessarily looking to run it back. I will if it fits, but I don't need to.
Okay. What about Ravens D? It's one of these slates. I normally would never ask you about defense,
Mm-hmm.
but you have a lot of high. You have Christian McCaffrey, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then a bunch of those mid-range guys. Man, I know you and I are both perfectly fine just ending up with whatever defense we get,
Yeah,
but like, put it this way, this is not a jam spot Baltimore defense for you, right? Are you just fine playing musical chairs again at the position?
definitely. And in just from what I've gathered so far, you're so starved for value. Uh, it seems like the Chiefs and the Bills defense is coming up a lot for me in the Sims so far.
Let's talk about Baltimore then. So the thing about the Ravens is They have a very nice implied total, 9.5 point favorites. What are the combinations here? I mean, on one hand, Mark Andrews, who practiced in full to close out the week, is out. So that means that Isaiah Likely's going to be one of those guys that gets some attention. He's coming around 19, 20% in our ownership projections. Lamar around 17. And then you've got Flowers, Odell Beckham, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. If I were to give you Flowers, Hill, Beckham, Edwards, Bateman, Aguilar, none of those guys are that enticing because it's still a pretty low volume passing offense. My favorite would still be like my favorite skill player is Likely because of the price point, and then it would be Flowers. I have no problem getting to a little bit of Beckham. I think there is some touchdown equity there, but I can't. It's so hard for me to pay 5,900 for Edwards when he is your prototypical decimal back.
Yes. And so the interesting thing about him is he's a blocker in the way that if he has a good game, he almost prevents other people. It makes it much tougher for other players in the game to have a good game. So he is interesting in that regard because he kind of isolates or silos all the points. But him and David Montgomery seem almost like they have to draw to multiple touchdowns at this point. Like if Gus Edwards scores once today, it doesn't mean you necessarily want him. It means he probably doesn't crush you. But how many times has him and Montgomery lately found the end zone and they put up 12, 13, 14 type points? It's not going to get it done.
No. Look, we saw a few big games from Edwards earlier in the year, right? But one of them was a 3-touchdown game, which is just, I mean, you're never banking on that.
It's just an outlier.
Yeah. And then the other one, because he's had a couple 20-point games. The other one was a 2-touchdown game. He had 12 for 62 on the ground. And then the other one, remember that 80-yard reception against Detroit on one target?
I mean, I remember it because it was like he tripled his like career receiving yard, some like ridiculous stat. Yeah. It was like 30% of his career yards or something.
Yeah, he had 180 receiving yards in 17 games. 80 of them came in one game this year. So it's tough for me to get there. I do like Isaiah Likely though. It's funny because I said that guy's pretty good, like one of the best backups, and you're like, no, this is on Wednesday. He said, no, this guy's very good. You're a big Isaiah Likely fan.
Oh yeah. Love him. Big time player.
Is he your favorite stacking option with Lamar, or is it him and Zay?
It's him and Zay. Again, you don't have great stacking options. That's just kind of the way it is. And with Baltimore, you can go skinny a lot easier. It's not a problem. Yeah, I think Likely's fine. I actually think tight end, for eight games is pretty deep. Like
4 games, 8 teams. Yes.
8 teams, 4 games, doesn't matter.
Yeah, Kelsey, Kittle, Kincaid, Likely.
Otten.
Kate Otten is down there.
Like, it's not that bad. So there is an opportunity cost. You can obviously double up at tight end. It would be him or Flowers. I think the last guy I want to mention, and he's just a complete wild card. Justice Hill is the type of player, unlike some of the other guys we've mentioned, it only takes a couple. If he gets 6, 8, 10 touches, you would live with that because anyone could go to the house. And with Mitchell, of course, not there, he has a role, but the volume is very, very dicey.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the only question for me is like, what's the opportunity cost for some of these cheap running backs? Because you're getting them, 4,800, Justice Hill, Mitchell's 5,200. That's wild. None of these guys, like if you're talking, because remember, the minimum salary at running back is still $4,000. Tight end's $2,500. Wide receiver is $3,000. So would I rather go to a $4,700 Justice Hill or a $3,600 Jameson Williams or $3,400 John Mechie and just hope that they do something similar and get into the end zone? Because you're going to need it from any of them given their workload.
No doubt about it. I think that's the prudent move for sure. I will say this, though. There is always a chance that the top of the wide receiver range explodes raw points wise, and 4 of them boxing out all the value at wide receiver. If that happens, there's going to be a build where you needed to punt maybe double tight end or punt a running back. Like if the Godwins of the world and those types, if 3 or 4 of them have a huge game, the Shakirs of the world might not have a seat in that lineup. And that's just a rarity, but I do think it's worth exploring on some lineups.
I can't get off of this game until we answer a few questions that I'm seeing pretty prevalent in chat right now. Dalvin Cook. I'm willing to be wrong on this, but a guy that was elevated to the active roster and was done so going into the divisional round of the playoffs when the Gus Edwards and Justice Hill two-headed backfield has been fine. And not to mention, Gus Edwards has been very good at the goal line. Lamar Jackson is obviously strong at the goal line. I don't see the reason to really take a risk on somebody like Dalvin Cook today. Do you?
No, definitely not. It would, if you think he has a role, I would have less inclination to play Gus Edwards, but I didn't have that inclination to begin with.
Right. Yeah, I can't get there. I can't do it. No. Any favorite way to play this game?
Not much, to be honest. It would be some type of exposure. My favorite way would be a one-off Raven, followed by a skinny Lamar stack.
Okay. So you're not looking really for the Lamar +2s right now?
I have a little, I think it's Flowers and Likely. Justice Hill's the wild card. And then the only other guy, again, I mentioned him at the beginning, and the Sims really seem to like him. Singletary does help a lot because he's not significantly, but he is cheaper than most of the other running backs, and that does help your lineups.
Let's move it on then, man. Get into the next one here. Green Bay, San Francisco. All right, so 10 points now. It was 9.5. It's moved to 10. Were you at all surprised by the 50.5 point total here? I know a ton of that's going to San Francisco, but still, that's a big total.
It's definitely a big total. I think it's one of those things, first impression, like, wow, that's high. And then you think about a San Francisco offense that, would you be surprised if they score 35 to 40 points? Like, I wouldn't.
No, and they have an implied total of 30 points.
Yeah, and I think they easily can eclipse that. And Green Bay, I don't know how good they are, to be honest, but they might be actually really good. And so I get why the total is where it is. I have no play on it on a betting standpoint, but I get it.
Okay, fair enough. So then let's dig into this one a little bit. So we've got the Green Bay side. Last week you need like Romeo Doubs, number one. I'm not trying to I don't think lightning strikes twice in the same spot here, Ben. You have Dobbs, Reed, Wicks, Watson, Musgrave, Kraft, very capable pass catcher, and Aaron Jones. I should say, by the way, AJ Dillon is questionable. I don't think he plays, but we'll see. We're big Aaron Jones fans here on this show. We've talked about it all season long, and in the off chance that he's healthy, we talk about it. Great game last week. They beat up on the Cowboys in Dallas. Much more difficult matchup for Aaron Jones this week. Much more difficult matchup for Jaden Reed. Granted, he's coming off a 0 reception game, but still. And a much more difficult matchup for Jordan Love. Now, do they have to throw? Will they have to throw a lot? Will they play from behind? Will they find some avenues to score points? It's entirely possible. So then here's the question I have for you and for you guys in chat as well. I'd love to know your thoughts on this outside of just Ben. Once you get past Aaron Jones, because I still think he's always viable because he's good. He's a very capable pass catcher. He's explosive. He's their goal line back. And a good chance that AJ Dillon just doesn't play. Outside of him, are you really trying to figure out which one of these pass catchers you want to play this week?
So it is a roulette situation. There's no doubt about it. Green Bay's using a lot of guys. They don't have a clear order. The tricky part is, as we saw last week, just because something is a roulette situation, it doesn't mean the number, look at roulette. Like the number does in fact hit. It's just very hard to determine. So do I have some Green Bay pass catchers in the pool? I do. But it's very difficult to decipher with allocations. And the good thing is everyone's in the same boat. I think Aaron Jones is a separate question. I think Kraft is a separate question, to be honest. But the wide receivers is very difficult. The one last thing I'll say, and this is just kind of thinking about it, and I'm guilty of it too. Have you seen anyone, Loughy, honestly? Have you seen any person this entire week, when you mention the Green Bay wide receivers, mention playing Dobbs again?
No,
No one wants
it,
to do that.
ah,
And I don't want to do that. I want to be clear, but he's not, just because he had a huge game, it doesn't really make him more likely or less likely in my mind to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, okay. And I feel like everyone, you see this, I come obviously from the PGA streets. Like every time someone breaks through and wins on tour, it's like, oh, he just had the big win, like can't play him the next week. And that's not always true. Like, I don't think Dobbs has a huge game, but I also don't think it's impossible that he's the guy once again. So it's just an interesting little wrinkle I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, well, let me put it to you this way. I don't think last week's performance means that he is less likely to have as big a game as he did last week. However, I think he is much less likely to have the game that he had last week.
100%. It's just funny that
detached entirely from last week's performance as far as probability. You get what I'm saying here.
100%. But you also get, and this is always just kind of like a mentality, if he didn't have a blow up game, if he just had a solid game, he would be talked about in a much better fashion here. Like he had a solid game last week. He can kind of build on that.
I don't know, man.
Fine.
Well, only because he's not cheap. He's not that cheap.
I know. That's why no one wants to play him.
I mean, if anything, who wants? I'm surprised that Jaden Reed's getting 14% after that last game.
See, like I'm not, to be honest, because everyone's like, oh, buy low. Like
yeah,
it can't be that bad again.
Yeah, and he's cheaper than Romeo Dobbs as well.
Exactly.
All right, well then let me hold your feet to the fire here. Is any of this gobbledygook actionable?
Yeah, just play Christian Watson. No, I mean,
all in on Dontavian Wicks today.
And then it's just like Bo Melton with his fifth catch of the year. It's just like, wait, what? Is it actionable? I think it's actionable in the sense that these guys are solid. I know it's always a cop out when you say like tournament type plays, but they are. There's floors to no one. We saw that with Reed last week, but at the same time, we know that Jordan Love can't possibly be even remotely as efficient as he was last week, but he also didn't have to throw at all. He threw the ball 21 times against Dallas. That's not going to happen here. So maybe the volume helps them out. And I do think it, in fact, keeps these guys in the conversation. But yeah, it's a difficult thing. You got to spin the roulette wheel if you want to benefit.
Yeah. By the way, Chris Williams, shout out to Chris, gifting 5 stochastic
my man
2 memberships here. Thanks, Chris. Good to see you. Yeah, I don't know, man. With Green Bay, I totally get what you're saying. I do. And you know what? It's not, but the thing is, it's not just Romeo Dobbs. And I don't want to spend all show on this. But the prevailing logic here definitely is that Green Bay gets, ground into the dirt.
Yeah.
Like, what if they do compete? It's a 4-game slate. What if they do compete? Then it's got to be somebody. The problem is there was a question from, I think, Steve earlier. He's like, isn't it possible that Love gets there and takes nobody with him? I mean, someone's coming with him. It's just who?
They're too cheap for no one to go. Like, it's not
right.
Someone's getting there, or Love can't have a good game unless he runs, which is very unlikely.
Unless it's just like the Aaron Jones show.
Yeah.
Which is possible.
Possible, but I'd say unlikely.
Where do you have Jones ranked among the other running backs?
I have him behind Pacheco. I have him behind Singletary, but that's more of a price thing. I have him kind of in the bucket with Gibbs and White, which is kind of where he's priced.
Yeah, me too. And James Cook. I know a lot of people are probably soured on James Cook a little bit. We'll get there. But I still think, as a slight home favorite here in a game that, you could see a decent amount of scoring, I still think Gibbs with the volume or Cook with the volume that we've seen, like another disappointing game against Pittsburgh. But how do you ignore 22 touches and 4 receptions? You kind of can't do that, right? Like if we're going to say, oh, Aaron Jones is fine here, then Cook has to be fine here too. The only drawback to Cook is obviously the real musical chairs situation at the goal line. Like Ty Johnson getting goal line opportunities. That sucks.
It does. The volume gives you a good floor. There's no doubt. The touchdown probably has to be there for the direct ceiling, but I get it. And unlike Green Bay and unlike Houston with the running backs we've talked about, Buffalo has a much better chance to win the game and play from ahead.
All right, let's get into the good stuff. The San Francisco, all of this is good stuff, really. All of this.
How many likes do we have?
All of it. I don't know. You tell me. What do we get? Why don't you refresh it for
I have 23, so I would hope that that's not right.
How many times? What do you have when we refresh it?
I have 255.
Okay.
We're getting there.
What do we call for? 500? We got about 30 minutes to go.
Yeah, but we're gonna pump it up right now. I have a feeling. Like I said,
we have over 1,500 watching. That would mean 33% of people watching would have to hit it to get us to
30 people just left. So we got, yeah. I always say this in one motion, just everyone hits the like button at once.
And breaks
the algorithm.
That'd be pretty sweet, actually.
Yeah, we got to coordinate that.
Joshua Mark said, is anyone else playing on Owner's Box today? I would assume a lot of people are, right? They sponsored this show for a while, and we've had a lot of people come in with big wins on Owner's Box. He said it's a little bit different with the 2-game slates. So I asked Mike if he could run the Sims for Owner's Box. Mike, throw them up on the screen before we go to the 49ers here. I'm sure this could help plenty of people, not just there, but anybody playing these 2-game slates as well, because there are still some big contests for these 2-gamers. No doubt about it.
Huge.
All right, Ben. So let's see real quick. And by the way, $500 up to $500 first match deposit bonus on Owner's Box. Link in the description and chat. It'll ask for a promo. You don't need one. The link will get you there. Just if you have an ad blocker, turn that off for a second when you use it, then you can throw it right back on. But up to $500 first match deposit bonus. And if you all you have to do is deposit $10, you get a free $5 DFS ticket with it. And a free $5 Lightning Lineups ticket, which is another cool format that they've got over there. Plus, these things have overlaid like crazy, and it's just been free money from the jump before the games even start. So if you're not at Owner's Box yet, best way to do it. So, all right, Lamar McCaffrey. So this is Saturday. Lamar McCaffrey, Hill. So I'm assuming Justice Hill is in there just because you're going to need salary relief. Mechie, Beckham, likely. You want Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, Brock Purdy. I mean, look, Ben, if there's one thing I can point out to you that I know for a fact is when you take that Detroit game, you take Detroit, you take Buffalo, even Kansas City, some of those options off of this slate, you're pretty starved for value for these Saturday games.
The 2-gamer is completely different in that regard. That's where, again, you're going to have to force some things in. And it's not even just them. Tampa provides value with Otten and at quarterback. So it's a lot different. And you might have to look to, I mean, when we talk about San Francisco, as we're talking about them right now, I don't know about you. I'm talking about the big names, Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, McCaffrey. I'm not talking about Jennings. I'm not talking about those guys. But on the 2-game slate, you might have to consider guys like that.
It's entirely different. Yep. But yeah, anyway, $500 first match deposit bonus, overlay, and 2 tickets, both tickets just on a $10 deposit. If you didn't want to max out that bonus, check out Owner's Box, link in the description. Like I said, no promo code necessary. Just use the link to get where you got to go. But yeah, with San Francisco, look, I get Christian McCaffrey is going to be chalky, totally understood. But at the current price point, specifically on DraftKings, it's still hard to build teams because, there's so many good options. But Christian McCaffrey on an average 10, 11, 12, 13 game slate, you're talking 10,000 plus, Ben. 8,800. What's that?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, 8,800. This is intentional, by the way. It's not like it's not like a misclick on the DraftKings pricing team. 41% though. I mean, let's be completely honest. 41% is still more than reasonable in a spot like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything that you could kind of hope for. He's rested, we're at home. It's going to be busy. It's Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, I'm not saying, oh, just lock him in, but he makes sense on every level. And if he doesn't have a big game, I'm not sure there's anything to point to of why that happens. It's just kind of McCaffrey is a very solid play in every format if you can afford it.
Exactly. I'm just curious here. I'm pulling up our boom bust tool on Stochastic, where you can see like optimal percentage and stuff. All right. So he basically owned right where we think he should be. 41% ownership, 39% optimal. Right. So, I mean, minus 2% leverage is nothing there. We pretty much have him projected to be owned right around where his optimal percentage is. And by the way, if you're going, how could he not be 90% optimal? Well, price factors into all of this. It's that simple. Like if McCaffrey has a good game, but not a crazy good game, and then he's essentially matched by two of what? Pacheco, Cook, Gibbs, Aaron Jones. God, there's some Rashad White. Then he's going to end up not being optimal, even if he has a decent raw scoring game.
Or, I mean, it's not direct correlation, but it's certainly correlated about if the value doesn't show up in a big way. The value is going to be more attached to McCaffrey than the mid-range. And if the value doesn't show up, you might see a situation where you'd rather have two 6K players than McCaffrey and insert 3K wide receiver.
And by the way, for what it's worth, I think we both love Christian McCaffrey today. But I'm not like looking at my Sims run, my last one, and I'll do one more after this show to get my lineups and everything situated. But my last Sims run, I got 45%. I'm not going to be unfavoriting and not exporting my non-Christian McCaffrey lineups.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm going to have a healthy amount in the pool, but I'll be honest, if something crazy happens and he's a complete no-show or he got hurt or something, my day wouldn't be over. It probably wouldn't even be that big of a deal. I would have a ton of dead lineups and a ton of lineups that are in a huge advantage.
Yeah, even if Christian McCaffrey goes for 25 today, that could be an issue if you're super overweight on it. I keep talking like I'm against playing McCaffrey. Obviously, I'm not.
I'm just neutral. He's a great
That's
play.
what I'm saying. I'm essentially with the field on McCaffrey right now.
Yeah. So am I as it shapes up. Yeah.
And then just looking at my personal in this last run, San Francisco exposure. Let's see. You know, my highest, I'm actually okay with this too, particularly at the price point. And I would imagine I'm going to have a lot of, two tight end lineups. 52% George Kittle right now. I like it. I like that price point. George Kittle's the type of guy that can have 4 receptions and still break a slate. So I'm never really opposed to getting a decent amount of him.
Yeah, he graded out. I mean, I know we're both using the Sims and I got to a healthy amount. Just doesn't mean I can't play another tight end. It's great exposure to a great offense and a great player. So one of my more important plays this slate.
How much are you looking to stack San Francisco on the full slate, the full 4-game slate today? Because you have Kittle, McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Debo. Like you said, if you're playing a 2-game slate, then guys like Jennings start coming into play and it gets a little bit uglier. But in this case, it's 4 main skill players. McCaffrey usually gets it done, and Debo's probably next in line. But Kittle and Ayuk can both have monster slate breaking games as well. Always a tough team to deal with.
One of the toughest. When I do, the good thing about San Francisco is we've seen time and time again the full onslaught can work. So I do have some Purdy teams that are just like, give me literally all of San Francisco, like any crazy amount. But it's not my favorite build. I mostly prefer to go elsewhere at quarterback. I guess I could put it as simple as that.
Yeah. BD said, yeah, but Christian McCaffrey isn't 9,500 for sure. And I mentioned that at the top. The pricing thing here is, look, love Christian McCaffrey. All I'm saying is that no, he's not 9,500. He's not 10,000. However, you have far less value on a 4-game slate in the postseason than you would in a regular season game 12-game slate.
Yeah. And it's there's a million things that are small, nuanced conversations with this in terms of he could have raw points that aren't great points per dollar and still get you there, depending on the value. There's all sorts of things, but I think we're all saying the same thing. It's Christian McCaffrey. I mean, honestly, we all know how good he is.
Yeah, absolute stud. I love him today. I'm just saying pretty much with the field as it stands right now. All right. If you had to rank these 49ers, how would you do it?
Factoring in price,
Yeah.
it would be Kittle 1, McCaffrey 2, I guess Debo 3 and Ayuk 4, but those two are pretty close.
Okay. And are you landing on a lot of San Fran stacks right now?
No, not a lot. I have like 10% Purdy.
Okay. Yeah. My last run, I got 22%. I also got a good amount of Baker, decent amount of Lamar. I'm actually, it's funny looking at it now, and I have no issues with this whatsoever. I'm actually pretty spaced out. I'm pretty spaced out as far as I'm just looking at quarterback right now. Let's see. Yeah, I have 4 quarterbacks in between 17 and 27%, and then Mahomes at 13%. So
It's that kind of slate. Yeah, I
yeah,
get it.
pretty spread out. Let's talk about Tampa and Detroit. So this is on to the Sunday slate. I tell you what, man, I definitely like these price points on Baker Mayfield. I really do. And you're talking about a guy that you look at 4 of his last 5 games. I know last week or 2 weeks ago against Carolina was an absolute disaster, right? But look at Baker's games recently. Whereas 337 and 3, 309 and 2, 283 and 2, 381 and 4. His last 1+ months, he's been crushing. And you look at this Lions team, dude, the Lions over the last month of football, last week, 300+ yards, 2 touchdowns to Stafford. They gave up a 300-something yard game to Nick Mullins. And prior to that, a 400-yard game. Yeah, they had 4 picks, but they also gave up multiple touchdowns. Dak Prescott had another 300-yard, 2-touchdown game. They've really been gashed in the secondary. Like, that's been an issue for them. Baker's the cheapest starting quarterback on this slate. And then you've got the attachment of Mike Evans, who could rip off a big 2-touchdown game at any point. Guy is very difficult to defend. Chris Godwin, great after the catch. Cade Otton's cheap. Rashad White has pass catching upside. He's going to play 75, 80% of the snaps, maybe more if Chase Edmonds is out. There's a lot to like for Tampa in my mind.
Definitely. Price helps. There's no doubt about it, but I'm getting some Baker onslaughts, Baker +2, Baker +3. It's a good game. Of course, there's no weather concerns, like what the reporter asked. But yeah, I like the Bucs. And it doesn't even mean that I think they're going to necessarily play well. It's just a really good environment. And the Lions secondary, I know Stafford is really good and he's got weapons too, but we saw some glimmers of that even in the last game. And I think Baker can replicate that and maybe even surpass that.
Yeah. Okay. So first off, I'm with you. I'm never truly convinced that Baker's just going to go out there and have a huge game. That's not what it's about, right? It's not about that. It's about if Baker has a big game, what is that getting you? Because at that price point, it gets you a lot. If Baker has another 300+ game with 2 or 3 touchdowns, I mean, yeah, Palmer, Moore. I know what happened last week, but they were still very infrequently targeted. It's just the Eagles secondary was terrible, and they didn't really need to go to Evans or Godwin all that much. It does come down to, though, if Baker ends up having a big game, what does that do for you? And I think it does a ton. You look at the top stacks tool, we have them with a 13% top stack probability right now. That's in line with Baltimore. And Baltimore, obviously, just by the way that team is constructed, it's a little bit different. Kansas City, Tampa Bay, Buffalo. The only 2 teams with higher top stack probability is Detroit at 21, and significantly, I should say, because 13 and 14% makes no difference here. Detroit at 21% and San Francisco at 17%. But as you're looking at top value, Tampa Bay ranks towards the top in top value. Run play percentage. They're, a team that's going to throw the football, and we have them as our third ranked stack as far as stack rating goes as well. So this is a team that I'll be happy to have a decent amount of exposure to without question.
Yeah, again, I really do like them. And they just make building easier. I know we had a couple of super chats, and one was about McCaffrey's percentage, and I think that it's related to what we're talking about right now. Like, if you pay down for the Tampa stack, you're gonna be able to get McCaffrey in a lot of lineups, and you really can get over that 40-50% owned that he might come in at. If you don't, it's a little trickier. And then wanna fly. Just appreciate that. Thanks for the advice. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Generous
A
super
little
chat.
$20 super chat just to say thank you. Hey, appreciate you, man. That means
Good
a lot.
karma. Gonna hopefully take something down when you do.
Let me remember the name. Wanna Fly 70. All right.
Yeah.
Keep that one in mind. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. How about Rachaad White, though?
Yeah, I mean,
because that price, I know where you stood all season. Well, second half of the season, because I was right there in lockstep with you saying, hey, if Rachaad White kills us, we can live with it, because week in and week out, he's giving you what, 18 to 22, and now he's north of 7K. Now you're getting that price point, and he's bunched up with all of the other running backs not named Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, he's a player that I've been fortunate. I feel like for the whole year I had just a good kind of read on him. I got on the right times, jumped off at the right times. The funny thing is that the volume hasn't, or the role hasn't changed much at all. He's still getting crazy work. You're going to pencil in 15 to 20 carries and a handful of targets. You find the end zone, you're probably in business. But as we've seen time and time again, that volume only takes you so far, just like James Cook. I think he's very similar to that. I think the better thing, though, he's a nice attachment with Baker. I have no problem rolling him into my Tampa stacks.
I'll take it a step further. And there were some comments in chat that I agree with for the most part about Detroit's run defense being really solid. I would actually prefer Rachaad White in Baker lineups.
Okay.
I honestly think I would, man. Rachaad White has had several games where if you had him as an attachment with Baker Mayfield, you were looking pretty decent. And yeah, I know Chase Edmonds got a couple of opportunities through the air last week, but it's also possible that he doesn't play. I know he got back to practice in a limited capacity, but they don't want to use any of those other guys. And the times earlier in the year, just guys, keep an eye on this, right? Because if you want to make swaps on Sunday, a lot of other running backs in the same price range. And maybe I'm exaggerating the impact on this, but if you actually look at Rachaad White's snap counts back in the games where Chase Edmonds was out, Ben, and then where he was in, because the Sean Tucker experiment died after what, two weeks. So, yeah. And excuse me, they only used Keyshawn Vaughn when Chase Edmonds was out. Look at the games where Chase Edmonds played more limited snaps. Rachaad White was out there 87% of snaps, 87, 82% of snaps. Then you've seen Edmonds coming in, playing anywhere from like 25 to 30% of snaps over the last 4 weeks. And Rachaad White's down to 70, 74, 68, 73. I really would think if Edmonds is out, you could be looking at upwards of, 87, 90% snap share for Rachaad White. And I think that matters in a dome game with a near 50-point total.
Oh, it's definitely impactful, and it just sets him up for even more chance of success in any type of game script. So yeah, there's no doubt about it. Tampa's a good team to target. One of the better on the slate.
Oh, nice. Want to fly with another 20. I did win FanDuel first. Our first FanDuel 100, 434, $9 nickel in the core. Okay.
That'll play.
That'll do it, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Final thoughts on Tampa, and Cade Otton's a guy that you've liked all year long.
Yeah, he's just another attachment. I'm not gonna say unfortunately, because he had 11 targets last week, and unless you're not paying attention, everyone's looking at that and saying, "Oh, okay, I need a cheap tight end. Let me go to Cade Otton." And I get it.
What are you doing with Detroit? Highest top stack probability in our tools. By the way, Sims tool, the Sims package, whether it's Sims data package or Sims Max, depending on whether you're like a single entry 3 max player or MME player, all of that, not only the Sims tool that, revolutionizing the game of DFS right now, We'll run that in a little bit. We have been running it. Mike's been throwing it up on the screen. But top stacks, boom bust, ownership, player projections, premium Discord, lineup generator, all of that is included. I know we don't have a ton of football left, but look, the Sims tool runs for every single slate, like every game, every showdown, whatever it is, no matter how niche the slate may be, it's in there. You know what I mean? So you can do weekly subscriptions. It's not just monthly. So if you wanted to jump in for the week, jump in for next week, however you want to play it. Link is always in the description or in chat if you're wondering what we're referencing on these tools and all of that. But yeah, Ben, top stack probability to the Lions, 21%, by far the highest on this slate today.
Yeah, and again, just the way they operate that offense, they've got pay down options, which makes it super easy. Jameson Williams and Reynolds.
That is the biggest part.
Yep. It's an easy build because you have every tier covered. You have two cheapies, you've got Laporta and Gibbs and that kind of mid-range balance build, and then you've got an Alpha and St. Brown on the outside, and you have a cheap quarterback. So you're at home in a dome against Tampa defense. It's pretty simple to do, and it can be very effective. I get why they grade out very well.
All right. Well, with that in mind, 21% top stack probability. Also, Mike, if you sort by value there, you'll see that it looks like you already did. The Detroit also second best value stack, and that goes back to what you just said. Jameson Williams, Reynolds. Reynolds had a decent game. I think he had like 5 for 80. That'll play. On these smaller slates. Jameson Williams is the type of guy that might give you like 1 fantasy point or rip off a big touchdown. At this point, he's an enigma, and you don't know what you're going to get from this guy. But you do know that if you're playing Jared Goff and you plug in Amon-Ra St. Brown, then some of those cheaper stacks, particularly with Khalif Raymond and his 33 or so % of snaps off the field, that, Reynolds is going to be on the field pretty much the whole game, Ben. Jameson Williams is going to be on the field pretty much 3/4, if not more than of the time. And then you're just hoping that they come along for the ride.
That's all, again, opportunity. That's what you're asking for. They're going to be out there. Different types of players. I agree. I think Reynolds is much more likely to give you an average to solid game. And I think Jameson Williams is much more likely to be a slate breaker. But yeah, they grade out very well, and I have both in the pool.
All right. Last question here, because I think we agree. We don't need to dig too far into this. Amon-Ra St. Brown with Goff looks great. Reynolds, Jameson Williams, 2 solid value plays on a slate that, is lacking in quality value. What about Laporta? I know he played 80% of snaps. I know he scored, but he didn't seem 100%. And it makes you wonder, like, when you've got Kittle at his price point, when you have Kelsey at his price point, when you have Isaiah Likely, you have a lot of tight ends. You mentioned it, a cheaper KDOT. And how do you prioritize a guy like Sam Laporta?
I'm not really. I do have a little because, again, with a 4-game slate, you can get most of these guys, but I have them behind guys like Kittle, behind Otten, even behind Kelsey.
Yeah, the thing too is that, like, no ownership is really running away with it. Laporta would still get at like 12% projected ownership right now. Kittle's the highest at 22, but it's not like Laporta's at 5 and Kittle and Kelsey are at 35 apiece.
Exactly.
All right. What are you doing with the running backs before we wrap up this final game?
Gibbs is an attachment at this point. He doesn't play a lot of snaps, and that concerns me. He still gets some work. Montgomery, I think, again, kind of like Gus Edwards, it's not working right now, and you're going to need multiple touchdowns, and I usually don't bank on those situations.
All right. Gibbs or Montgomery? Is this still Gibbs over Montgomery?
Yes.
Yeah, just on an efficiency basis.
Yes.
Where do you rank Gibbs among the other running backs? I
That's
have to ask you that question because they're all so similarly priced. We'd be doing a disservice to the near 2,000 people hanging with us right now.
It's not clear to me. I do have him behind Pacheco, and I think I have him behind White. He's kind of in that Cook and Aaron Jones bucket. Singletary ahead of him as well, but that's a price thing.
So basically, like, obviously McCaffrey, but then
I don't count him because he's
yeah.
You
said you'd put him behind Pacheco and White.
I would. Pacheco to me is probably my favorite of the 6Ks.
And you've stood your ground since Wednesday too, because you said the
Yeah.
same thing to me
I
earlier.
just I just think he's an amazing player, and I think Kansas City, as we kind of round out the fourth game, Kansas City's formula is all right. We're all trying to decipher Hardman or MVS or Sky Moore. No, they're just going to stick to the big guys: Rice, Kelsey, and Pacheco.
Well,
Uh,
perfect segue into that game. They're 2.5 point dogs. I mentioned to you last week that, in that game, you saw 22 combined targets between Kelsey and 22 combined targets between Kelsey and Rashee Rice. Really significant stuff because you're talking about two guys that now you're into the postseason. I know that Mecole Hardman couldn't track balls, and I still think Hardman's fine, right? Mecole Hardman is the type of guy that you need one from him. Justin Watson, the same. He always seems to be Patrick Mahomes' fifth read. Have you ever noticed that? Like,
yeah, reluctantly go to him.
yeah, it's always when Patrick Mahomes is scrambling for 15 seconds at the 12-yard line. Justin Watson, the entire defense just forgets about Justin Watson and he scores, but it never seems like he's the first read. He's there though, he's there, fine. But when it all boils down to it, the Mahomes, I'll say this much, okay? And I know that Buffalo defense getting a little bit healthier. They have definitely stepped up lately. It is in Buffalo. This is the cheapest you're ever going to get a 2-player stack with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And again, that offense is very I know it hasn't been perfect by any stretch, but I still believe in that. And it's always been a price issue with Kansas City. It used to be, you're paying like 30,000, it felt like, for QB +2. And that's just not the case. So I am doing that. You mentioned before when you're talking about your quarterbacks, it's not the top, and Kansas City's not my top stack either, but I do have some Mahomes, and I do link him to his big weapons.
Yeah, me too. Although I will say, like, if you're playing just one of the big guns and it ends up being Hardman because you're trying to get the Amon-Ra St. Brown or the Mike Evans and the McCaffreys in there, I'm really not opposed to that either. Like, sure, I'd love to have Mahomes, Rice, and Kelsey, but you know what? An attachment to Mahomes, you could always do worse than just having one of those cheap guys because the bad thing is you never know who it's going to be. The good thing is that you never know who it's going to be because they're all dirt cheap as a result.
It's like kind of like the Green Bay situation. Just because we don't know doesn't mean it's nobody. It's just very difficult to know who it could be.
Yep, exactly. So how do you prioritize KC right now? I know we're both not prioritizing Mahomes. Like I said, I have around 13% Mahomes stacks. I'm fine with that. And I know that they're going to be littered with Rashee Rice and Kelsey, and then probably a little bit of Mecole Hardman and a tiny bit of Justin Watts. I can tell you what my Kansas City exposures look like right now. Let me actually do this, Ben. Kansas City for me is, yeah, a ton of Kelsey, Pacheco, only 22% Rice right now. Kelsey's price point is a big factor there. And then trace amounts of Mecole Hardman and Justin Watson, as I expected.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I'm basically sticking to the big names. I like Pacheco in that backfield, one of my favorite backs. Kelsey and Kittle are amongst my favorite tight ends. And Rice is the trickier one because it's a deep wide receiver range, but I did force him in a little bit. I have a couple of shares of Hardman, and that's just a price thing.
All right. You want to wrap this up with Buffalo before then we got Eric and Matt Gajewski coming up next on Live Before Lock. Gonna take you all the way up to 4:30. By the way, 29 likes from 500. We have almost 2,000 people. There have to be.
Oh, we're about to knock that off right here.
Yeah, I mean, we got good people hanging. I know there's people just forget. It's all right. Subtle reminder here to you guys in the sin bin. Atone for your sins. Get us to 500. Let's make this a good day. All right, Buffalo. I hate to spend such little time on Kansas City, but it's pretty easy, right? Like, if you're playing this team, it's Rice, it's Kelsey, it's Mahomes, and Pacheco clearly in the backfield getting all of the work.
Correct. Yeah. I don't think can't dig just to dig. I think that's a mistake people do on 4-game slates.
I just don't want to shortchange people. We leave no stone unturned, but I think that's the answer. A little bit of Hardman, maybe a little bit of Watson. Yeah. All right, Buffalo. I think I like Cook a little bit more than you do. Just based on volume. If he has one of those efficiency games, I know he's not as efficient as Gibbs, but at the same time, it's not like Gibbs is your bell cow goal line back. If you're still willing to play Gibbs, though, you should have some interest in James Cook as well. That's all I'm saying.
And I do have some. It's very difficult when there's so many other needs right there. So I have no problem.
I wasn't speaking to you specifically, just in general.
Yeah. No, I listen. It's a crowded range. So Buffalo, I think the biggest question with Buffalo is what to do with Diggs. He hasn't performed. He did get 9 targets in the last game, which is nice, but you're still looking for a little more than that. And he's with some obviously top end wide receivers, but the price continues to drop, and I will continue to put him in the pool.
Nate Larson, would you take a third Detroit receiver in a Goff stack or take a guy like Mechie? You could do either, but I have zero problem with Goff +3 on this slate.
Agree.
Zero problem at all. With Gabe Davis out, it doesn't really clarify much, Ben, because it's like we saw Khalil Shakir. Yeah, he scored last week, but it's not like he was super active in that game. Trent Sherfield played 63% of snaps. Shakir played 67. Deontay Hardy had one big 30-yard reception. Like all of these guys are kind of live to do something. Dawson Knox scored, did virtually nothing outside of that. I mean, it really is Diggs, despite the underwhelming game, still 9 targets, and Dalton Kincaid. Like those are still the best options here, but Shakir is going to pop as a value play just because he'll be on the field.
Yeah, it's just, you saw it last game. He was a borderline miracle from doing nothing. That touchdown was insane. And it bailed a lot of people out, including me. I had a lot of them there. So I get it. You've got Josh Allen, you've got Diggs, and then you've got a whole lot of guys that can contribute. And Josh Allen is a tank. We've seen it. The guy's unbelievable. And he I feel like is always overlooked on these slates because he's expensive, but still a great option.
Favorite ways to play Buffalo today?
I think it's nothing too crazy. It's only +2s or singles with Josh Allen. And it's Diggs and probably Kincaid. You like Cook more than I do. It's not to say I don't have him, but you definitely like Cook more than I do.
It scares me, man, because my Buffalo exposures are pretty low.
Okay. I don't have a ton, but I do have some.
I have a lot of Bills defense right now.
Yeah, Bills defense. The thing that's funny, it's like I like both the sides. Both of those defenses show up a ton. The Bills defense and the Chiefs defense.
Exactly. Because you're looking at those price points with these defenses outside of Baltimore and the 49ers and the Lions. You know, Bills and Chiefs are 28 and 2,700 respectively on DraftKings. That's cheap, man.
Yeah,
it's cheap for sure. I'm getting about 17% James Cook, perfectly fine with that. And Mike's been showing the Sims run on his end all show. So hopefully that helps you guys. Anything else before we turn the page over to Live Before Live?
No, not really. Obviously, very standard stuff like be ready to react. It's a 2-day slate. So depending on what happens, see what you can do and adjust your lineups. You got any questions? Our handles are there. Let's have a day. Some big money up for grabs.
Favorite stack before we go?
Tampa.
Tampa?
Yes.
All right. Let's go, baby. I like Tampa too. And Detroit, both sides of that one. Appreciate you guys hanging out as always. You're the best. Have a great rest of the weekend. Good luck today. Remember, follow Ben. Hit him up at JazzRazDFS. Me at Laffy_D on the Twitter. Appreciate you guys supporting the channel. Coming to hang out each and every week. Championship weekend next week. Eric and Matt coming up next. Bye-bye. Man, Christmas might be over, but Santa definitely came around to the Stochastic family this week. It's Stochastic Hall of Fame, baby. And all you got to do to get involved, get that sweet free month of any Stochastic package you want, $200 value, is download the Stochastic profile picture. It's stochastic.com/avatar. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Doesn't matter what the entry is. And tweet your wins to us at StochasticHOF. And you're in, baby. Just like everyone, we're about to talk about some huge winners coming out of the holidays. And we kick it off with the first one on the list, Freddie P. Beautiful night for us on Sunday. Love everything about you guys. Much respect. Hey, thanks, Freddie. $15,000 up top for Freddie. And then Danielson, Merry Christmas. See what I mean? Santa came around. Got third out of 185,000 in the FanDuel quarter GPP. A couple days after trying out your Sims Max tool for the week with the holiday promo. First time using any sim, and he takes down third place for $500. Good stuff, man. And then our own Tom Kennedy, CEO, stochastic, putting his money where his mouth is. Closest brush with a millie, rarely dabble in high stakes, but a couple things changed. Talks about the Sims tool, which won him $150,000. And then a couple days before that, Sims tool, using default settings, factory settings, chopped first place for almost $24,000. So shout out to Tom, putting up big numbers over the last week. And Sean Geezy, would this be a Hall of Fame segment without Sean? Took down the $4.20 max on DK, and then he follows it up with second and third in the $2 mini max. The guy's on a really insane heater, rocking the tools over with us at Stochastic. Shout out to Sean, as always, in the Hall of Fame. Kevin Cutler, after splitting first Thursday, I'll take another split tonight on the 40K Showdown. Hope to keep things rolling. It's all clicking right now. Yeah, man, almost $900 for Kevin. And Mo Terps with the $200 win, right? Said not all huge wins or fields, but the tools work. Trust them. Then Mo Terps slaying on Owner's Box. There's like 5 screenshots here from Mo just destroying the game over at Owner's Box. Alexis Sierra, shout out to EMAX, ship my money and player Q DFS on the Saturday slate. Second win of the year. Team Stochastic, thanks for the great shows every day. That's a $1,000 win. And Justin Tope, been on a heater himself. $750 win here. Projections are on point as they've been all season. Yeah, Justin had another one too in there. Just been on an absolute 10-day heater. And Matisse, I should have took down the 100K Sunday NFL rush. 2 incompletions from Dortz. Just needed 1 catch. Anyway, hope this inducts me into the Hall of Fame. Yes, it does, sir. $5,000, third place. Congrats, brother. And then X-Night.
Out there with the projections, baby. You're making it rain.
We out
on
here.
Them.
Draft season.
Don't say that. Don't say this to a guy who has a 17.5 Musgrave ticket.
I'm evaluating the slate, man. That was a question, not a statement.
Evaluate D's nuts. How about that?
So it's not Tucker Craft season.
It is not Tucker Craft season, or for the love of God. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL Live Before Lock, presented by Owner's Box. I'm Eric Lindquist, coming to you on a Saturday, back-to-back Saturdays here in the NFL streets. Smash the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Welcome if you're new to the channel. If you're not, if you've been here all season long, you know what we're about to get into, and that's some goodness. Probably not too much singing, although Gajewski was singing. He has beautiful, beautiful pipes, singing a little bit before the show. Gajewski, can you give the people a little tune? Can we get this started off in a cheery situation?
That was kind of absent-minded. What was I singing?
I don't know. We were just singing, we really like projections.
You
here.
said, why do I have so much Reynolds?
Yep.
I do have a lot of Josh Reynolds right now. A lot of just the cheap Detroit along with McCaffrey. So yeah.
Can you sing who's gonna ruin your lineups?
Well, the Packers are on the slate. So
now see, this is no fun. I need the singing, the Gajewski singing before the show. It was beautiful. You have a great singing voice, sir.
That's the first time anyone's ever said that to me. So thank you. I'm not going to sing right now. Maybe if we win the millie or something.
Okay, so let's win $1 million. Yeah, that would help. That would help the singing voice. Then you better get on the stream and sing, because you could just pretty much do whatever you wanted at that point. But
I've done a lot of things on the stream. I've shotgunned to Four Loko on the stream.
You have shotgun to Four Loko, and since then it's been all downhill.
Yeah, that's about accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. We need those kind of things. I mean, I've shaved eyebrows on streams. I've eaten chalk on a stream, like actual chalk. That's a thing that occurred. Well, vibes are high. 50 minutes here left in the show. Let's get to it, friends. We got 4 games on this main slate. We're going to cover a little bit of stuff for the Saturday only people too here as well and talk about things. But from an actives and inactives list, I mean, there's going to be one game at a time. I think the very obvious ones we got yesterday, Mark Andrews, he's not going to be playing football here in 50 minutes, nor is Marlon Humphrey, cornerback extraordinaire here for the Baltimore Ravens. Anything else that you really want to bring up for actives and actives leading into the weekend?
It's a 4-game slate, so we're getting deep. I think the biggest one was probably just Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
And it's not that I wanted to play Kadarius Toney. It just kind of solidifies some routes for other Chiefs players that I have interest in. Otherwise, that's really it. We kind of know who's playing. There's a ton of beat reporting on these teams. I mean, they're high profile games. So for the most part, we know what's up.
Yeah, we know what's up, friends. And we know John Mechie's going to be on the field a lot. We know that Eric Lindquist is going to click that button way too much today. He's cheap, friends. Let's get into it. We begin fight. Looking at the quarterback position, only some limited options here, but obviously was doing a lot of my work here in the Sims tool, per usual, getting ready to rock here on this slate. And you have limited options because, again, just 4 teams in action, 8 total quarterbacks. So with the chalk being pretty spread out, I mean, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, Lamar Jackson, all of them sitting north of 15%. Do you have a chalky quarterback that you find yourself rostering more than the field here today?
Of the chalky group, it's Purdy. But we're spread pretty thin. Excuse me, I guess evenly is the right word for ownership. So we talk about quarterback a lot. It's very seldom we get a guy that's like uber chalk on a slate. So I'm typically trying to just spread my quarterback action and then get different in the stacks. But if you made me pick one of these top 3 guys, it is Purdy, just as far as price adjusted projection go. Against a Green Bay defense, which has given up a lot of points. I know a lot of the Dak stuff came in garbage time, if you will, or at least when they were trailing pretty considerably. But Dak still got there. You can go back game over game. It's been pretty nice for opposing offenses facing the Packers. And not too worried about Jair. You've got tons of options in the San Francisco offense to attack. And a lot of people are going to be clicking McCaffrey. There's interesting ways I think you could play Purdy that might give you a little leverage, even though he comes in with some ownership himself.
Well, yeah, not only that, Jair Alexander, I'm just going to throw it out there. He's playing, but is he playing, if you know what I mean? Like, is he going to be effective? He got really rocked last week, and obviously he was very important in that first half, shutting down CeeDee Lamb. A lot of it was just deep coverage and them playing soft and allowing Jake Ferguson to just Fergie Ferg, let me love you long time a little bit throughout that entire second half. I mean, it's just such an interesting spot here with Jair Alexander. Like, is he going to be effective? I don't even know that, but does it matter for a guy in Brock Purdy, led the entire league in yards per pass attempt, has all of the skill position players in all of the land, tons of ways to utilize him. And then you go into the Sims tool. I just have so much of him in my top simmed ROI lineups. I'm assuming that you have the same.
Yeah, I mean, got a ton of Purdy. So yeah, in the chalky group, it really just is a ton of 49ers, and it makes sense. They're massive favorites over the Packers. But with Purdy specifically, if this team scores a lot of points and it's just not McCaffrey probably needs multiple touchdowns. Say McCaffrey gets 1 and the rest come through the air, you're going to be sitting really nice with Purdy.
Yep. Niners field soaking wet, rain still in the forecast. Yeah, you know what? If you're an offensive player, you know where you're going. Like, that helps, right? Like, you know where you're going, and the defensive player doesn't necessarily know where you're going. They have things called up, play calls, but like, the offense, you're reacting to the offense. And the offense, if you know where you're going, if it's slippery, advantage offense in most of those situations. Like, that's the way I look at it. It's not, I'm not even going to be factoring it in because I don't think it matters unless we just see the beginning of the game and you see dudes sliding all over the place, in which case go ahead and jam some unders early. But, you know, for the most part, I'm just going to be playing so much San Francisco. And that's coming from a guy, myself. How about us last week with Green Bay? That was a beautiful call. However, of course, Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson, and not that we were like completely underweight to those guys, but you absolutely still needed to have Dak in a lot of those lineups. So is what it is there. Garbage time. It's effective. It counts for DFS, that's for sure. But Brock Purdy, I expect him to get things done in regulation here with all of his weapons, that's for sure. But we talked about some of the chalkier guys. Is there somebody chalky that you find yourself coming into underweight? Because there's one guy in particular that I'm just not rostering like at all up here.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about the weather, for those of you weather bros in the chat, what's the total of the game?
Yeah, exactly.
It's 50 and a half. The only thing you need to look at for weather is the total. Don't even open up your weather app. Go to whatever book you use. See that the total is still 50 and a half. Yeah, not worried about the weather. And plus, for those of you talking about the field, there's full-time grounds crew, staff members, full-time employees. Their whole job is to take care of the field. That's all they do. I think we're going to be...
Unless you're Buffalo, in which case you've got to grab shovels and, you know, pull it out of your garage and join them at the field. That's
was
a different set of circumstances.
Okay, so that was
Buffalo.
a situation where you should have been concerned with the weather because the total was like 36.
That's exactly it. And then, of course, shootout. It was just pure punishment for anybody who took unders. I took a Mason Rudolph, one of my 2 losses over the weekend. I went 7-2 betting last weekend. And I had Mason Rudolph under 15.5 completions, just skyrockets over in better weather. It was a little bit upsetting to see the game postponed at that point, but I rectified it by betting George Pickens on the other side, got the over on his completions, and I think he smashed that in like 2.5 quarters. But anywho, this is a show about today, so let's get back to today. You covered everything for the weather there. The guy that I wanted to single out and just bring up your opinion on is Jared Goff coming in at 21%. Tampa Bay's defense is playing a lot better. Now, Philadelphia, they've been in shambles. They played Carolina at the end of the last season, but like Dave Winfield's boy is very good at football out there, roaming. He is combing the desert for all you Spaceballs people. He is doing everything defensively. Second best safety out there in PFF grading. And God, Tampa Bay can get after a quarterback from time to time here too. I think Detroit probably ends up, maybe trying to not slow it down because they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's an absolute freak. You got Sam Laporta, who probably gets to play a little bit more this time around, but 21% having him the chalkiest guy, and having somebody like Baker Mayfield down here at 15%, who's $300 cheaper, is probably coming from behind mode and has a running back where, his utilization in the pass game, Rachaad White, very different than how you're trying to utilize David Montgomery and sometimes Jahmyr Gibbs. But I like Baker Mayfield more than I like Jared Goff straight up, considering how my lineups look. I don't know if you feel the same way, but Jared Goff, I'm just not going to be getting to 21% of him. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to come in shy of that. There's a couple of reasons why. He has the chalkiest receivers in the slate. It's not even close.
Yep.
So if you play Jared Goff, I'm assuming you're playing some combination of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Josh Reynolds, and I guess if you're being very contrarian, Laporta would give you that leverage. But immediately you're walking into stack ownership with Goff. So it's not even that he's super chalky individually. All his receivers are chalky. Doesn't mean you can't use him. You just need to be a little bit smart of the way you build. And the other concern is this is a team that wants to run the ball. They're not a very, I guess, pass rate over expectation would be the word. They're not a team that ranks towards the top of the NFL in those metrics. They do face a defense in Tampa Bay, which is very good against the run, and they're kind of uniquely built with Vita Vea just plugging up the middle for that defense. But at the end of the day, it's a team that still will try to run the ball and take the ball out of Goff's hands. It's still an awesome game total. So this is honestly the situation I'm having the toughest time building around. Right now, I have Goff as my 3rd most owned quarterback in the portfolio. He's still going to be negatively leveraged in my own personal portfolio compared to where he comes in lineups, but I'm messing around with these stacks because I think they're going to be pretty chalky, and I wouldn't be surprised if I come in even lower on Goff than this.
Yeah, and I will say I have no problem getting to Jameson Williams, Josh Reynolds as some of the cheapies. I do think there's one wide receiver. We shouldn't we know I have a McCole Hardman problem as well today going into the last game of the slate. Khalil Shakira hanging out there in the evening window as well. But Jameson Williams, Josh Reynolds, there's still guys in the Sims tool that are boosted up there that are showing up. But I find it interesting to see when I ran an unencumbered number there, just my top 20 lineups. I'm going to be playing 40 lineups for the weekend. I'm getting to no Jared Goff, but I'm getting to quite a bit of Jameson Williams and Josh Reynolds, and I don't completely hate it. I think there's going to be somebody that pops there out of the Detroit passing game. It's just, they're at price points where it's pretty advantageous to get there. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the one wide receiver that I think I'm pretty confident gets there this weekend. I think Zay Flowers is an interesting tournament play here. As long as, Stingley stays on the outside like he always does, that'll make me happy. But I'm looking here at the board, and I'm not against Williams Reynolds. I'm not going to be bringing Goff along for the ride at this kind of ownership. I'm going to be getting to a little bit more Baker Mayfield, boosting a little bit to get to more Evans, to more Godwin, kind of an Evans remember me spot, if you will. But any other quarterback conversation here, because it is jarring to see a sub 10% Josh Allen. That's for sure. We know what he can get it done. We know he can get it done with his legs here as well. But Kansas City's defense is freaking good, guys. It is a really good defense. I think that game plays pretty ugly compared to expectation for it right now. And I'm not sure that I'm going to get to an 8K Josh Allen on this slate. I would rather just go to the floor to our guy Jordan Love and try to take a couple of shots there. But any other notes here at quarterback? Because, I'm a little bit spread out, but shorting Jared Goff, way over on Baker Mayfield, about there at Lamar, way over on Purdy, and then just no Josh Allen. That's kind of the highlighted notes.
Yeah, I have some of all these quarterbacks. I'm with you on Josh Allen and Lamar. It's not because I dislike them individually. Mainly they're a price thing. You still have to try to find ways to get McCaffrey, to get Amon-Ra St. Brown. Most of the tight ends, unless you're getting pretty greasy, are priced up as well, at least the ones I want to play. So you run out of salary pretty quickly on this slate. So kind of a casualty in my own portfolio has been Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen, I'm going to have them in single digits. And I'm with you on Jordan Love. I think he's interesting, not going to be owned. But CJ Stroud, I mean, I understand why he's coming in with a 1.3 ownership projection on DraftKings for us. But I mean, man, this is an awesome quarterback. Yes, he's facing a tough defense, but he's faced plenty of them. Like 1%. I don't know. I didn't get a ton of CJ Stroud, and maybe that's just because I mean 2% you're possibly leveraged, but I'm going to be looking to get at least a bit more than that in my own group of lineups. And I think he's pretty easy to stack too. You got a tight end you like. You mentioned Mechie. I'm all in on that for a cheap play leverage off of your Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams. Of course, you got the stud Nico Collins, but like it's a 4-game slate, 1%, man. Like I'm definitely going to play some Stroud.
Yeah, if McCole Hardman had also targeted the football last week and just caught the damn thing when it was in the air, but he's going to be on the field more. Again, no.
Is he? I don't know. He's worse than MVS.
Don't do that to me.
Dude, I don't know. He had like, you and I played a lot of MVS in our days, and I played some Mecole last week too. I mean, it's hard to look worse than Kelsey right now, and Mecole Hardman did it.
That's the
he spirit. Didn't. Mecole Hardman is so bad he didn't even look good in college. I cannot. This guy is.
Mecole Hardman 44% of the routes last week. So I mean, he was on 44% of his dropbacks. He was running a route, so that was good. And 2 of them, if he had just located the football, I would be richer than I am today. But no, just can't target the football in the air. That's fun.
We can talk about him a little more when we get to wide receiver, because I actually
it's more about like I'm looking for a cheapie to like have some swappability, and obviously I am going to be playing some Reynolds. I'm going to be playing some Jameson Williams because of the game environment there, but obviously I want to have some swappability, and then I just have a John Mechie problem today. So lots of cheap wide receivers we'll get to here, but I'm with you. I have 5%. So what is that? 2 of my 40 lineups that has Mr. CJ Stroud. Good job. Good effort, Eric. That'll be fun to watch him go completely nuts with the wide receiver I'm overweight to here. I think Nico Collins gets absolutely blanketed, and they do everything they can to try to slow him down. He's a beast. I love Nico Collins, but this is going to be by far the toughest spot. I mean, since week 1, when they played this very same Baltimore team and just shut down everything. So we shall see, my friends. Anything else for quarterback?
I think we hit on everybody.
Mahomes, yay or nay?
I like Mahomes. We actually did not hit on Mahomes.
That's the only guy. I'm at the field, so I'm just a coward.
I'm going to be a little above the field with him. The only tough part is he's hard to stack, and Kelsey's been awful. But I honestly kind of like buying low on Kelsey right now, especially tight end is a little, I mean, everyone's expensive, like the good players. So if you go up at tight end, you maybe aren't playing Amon-Ra or something like that. So you get a little bit of leverage there. So I'm willing to go back to some Mahomes Kelsey stuff. And I like now that we don't have Kadarius Toney, it gives us a little bit of clarity. So yeah, I like Mahomes. I think he's interesting. Got to pay up a little bit off Purdy, Baker, Goff. Not sure how many people are going to do that.
No one is worse than MVS. I agree with you, Ghetto Farmer Boy. I was intrigued by the body profile, by some of the upside we saw in Green Bay. And then, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes. You would think he would be the quarterback. They said before last season, hey, we're going to spread it around. You know what they did? They spread it around. Not only then, but into this year. It's been tilting. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to be playing some of him, Kelsey, Pacheco, all these guys, and kind of mixing those in, but not in a large way. Going to be getting to a lot of Baker Mayfield. Best of luck to me there. But friends, best of luck to you, not only in the NFL today, but there's a massive MMA slate. We got UFC 297 coming down the pipeline. And wouldn't you know it, the MMA Sims tool here at Stokastic is live. My buddy Greg Ehrenberg, if you head to his X at Greg Ehrenberg, or at G Ehrenberg DFS, if you will, sorry, I gotta get that clear. 297, he is breaking everything down with the new MMA Sims tool. If you've enjoyed this product, which I bet you have, in the NFL, NBA, PGA, use promo code 297, get that MMA Sims package for 30% off right now. It's going to be an awesome event. Obviously, not just Strickland, Duplessis. We've got some awesome fights up and down that card. Pretty much, I think Flick wins. I think that's going to be a fun one to pay attention to. That's for sure. I think you got some Canadians that are going to really bring the thunder. We're going to have some fun watching some UFC after some football here. That's for sure. But the MMA Sims tool, code 297, 30% off. Fire that up. And hey, I know Greg ended up banking that the $3 mini max that they had. Again, it is an awesome tournament. I wish they ran that tournament iteration in the NFL, in the NBA. They're running it for MMA right now. So go join that, jump into 297, get that Sims tool, and fire up some positive EV lineups and enjoy the festivities for tonight. Alrighty, y'all, let's head to the running back position where, can we just give a shout out to the GOAT, Aaron Jones for last week. That was beautiful stuff, having nearly 100% of him, highest owned player on the slate. I believe you had the same. But my God, how do we get away from $8,800 Christian McCaffrey? I have nearly 100% of him this week. I think it's too low of a tag. We have been paying nearly $10K for him. FanDuel's a completely different discussion where he's priced at there, but like Green Bay, 24th against running backs from a fantasy perspective this season. McCaffrey, Calf's good to go. All the usage and all the land. And even with Eli Mitchell, he's a great insurance policy to have. They were giving him all the snaps and all the land to start off the season, built that base. It's about that base, no treble. But Christian McCaffrey, 41.5%. More or less, Matt Gajewski?
More. It's
Way
so
more.
easy to get to him. You're more, right?
Way more, like 90%.
I'm at 70 right now, and I'm not trying to bring it down. I'll say that much.
Yeah. It's absurd. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. Christian McCaffrey is 8,800 against defense that we don't trust, that has their best player dinged up. Obviously, he's a cornerback, so it is what it is there. But I mean, this is going to be all the opportunity. This is why you go and get a Christian McCaffrey, so you can unleash him here in these spots. And I just don't see how, barring injury, he fails here. 8,800 is too cheap. It is too damn cheap.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I like it from a tournament perspective. And Cash, he's the first guy in your lineup for all the reasons you mentioned. But on a slate like this, you lock in McCaffrey, and then assuming you play some other stud, whether it's a QB or Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe you prefer Kelsey, you can make that work with just a dearth of options. It's not like we have one value play you're funneled to if you slot in McCaffrey. When you do this, you can play a chalky guy. You can go to Reynolds or Jameson Williams. But we've mentioned a couple guys below 4K that you could use for leverage. Shakir's kind of in this middling ownership range. Mechie, I think, is going to come in pretty low owned. And it's not just that. You could go to a Mecole Hardman. You could gamble on the Packers situation. They're going to use about 5 receivers tonight. There's a ton of different, like Tampa Bay is cheap guys. You could use a cheap tight end like a Knox or a K-Dot and anything like that. So with McCaffrey, you're not funneled to one lineup construction that has the same chalky cheap guy as everyone else. You can mix and match these players and build unique lineups with your stacks, whatever it is you prefer, which just leads me to even more McCaffrey because there's ways to get around him as a chalky running back.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to get around him specifically, that's for sure. But I'm just jamming Christian McCaffrey, just jamming. I don't see a reason.
You said it. He needs to get hurt to fail.
Yeah, it's just, if there are 2 other running backs that put up 30 spots, or 3 running backs, I suppose, that put up 30 spots, so be it. But at 25, like 24.5 is projection here at Stochastic. Just give me that. Give me 24.5 and I'll say, everybody come get me. I am just fine with it. There's also a lot of these 3K wide receivers. I mean, 2 of the 3 most popular wide receivers on the slate, Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, are 3,700 and 3,600. I'm just saying, it's pretty easy to get down to the doldrums and find something. If that's Khalil Shakir, if that's John Mechie for you. We saw the upside even to like a Trey Palmer, a David Morehouse. Like there are ways that I'm going to access Christian McCaffrey in just about everything I do. And I'm going to have a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown as well. I think it's pretty easy to get to both here, but obviously we're not helping the people out here, giving them all these great in-depth plays saying, oh, Christian McCaffrey, a good running back play. Like, quite obviously. I'm just letting you know, relative to his ownership, I'm going to be way over. Is there any other running back here amongst these 6K guys, Aaron Jones, Jahmyr Gibbs, Rashad White, Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook, that you find yourself way overweight to? Because, I mean, I said I have more Baker Mayfield than the field. I definitely have more Rashad White than the field. But are we going back to Aaron Jones or anything else you like in the 6K range that you're overweight to?
6K range is a little tricky. My favorite play in this range is Pacheco, just a combination of volume and game environment. with Detroit, you're always going to run the risk of one of them not being the guy that gets like the touchdowns or the explosive plays. Gibbs has a better pass game role. Montgomery, more of your goal line and early down back, but Gibbs has carved away a little bit of that role. Still, you're dealing with two guys in the same backfield, whereas Pacheco has everything. Aaron Jones is just a severe underdog, and he's gotten there with AJ, like AJ Dillon. Even if he like comes back and is active in this game, which I don't think he's going to be, Aaron Jones should handle all the work. James Cook, they use 3 backs, so you're going to see a little bit of Latavius Murray and Ty Johnson at times, likely. So I don't know. I find myself just going to Pacheco for the safety more than anything else. What about you?
Well, I mean, Pacheco gives you ultimate swappability to anything else you want. That's the last game of the entire 4-game slate. I think it makes sense to get to a little bit of Aaron Jones just because he gets the backfield. No AJ Dillon. Life is so much better. Why couldn't we get that during the entire regular season, Matt Gajewski? Good Lord. But Rachaad White is my guy here, 6,500. I think everybody saw the Philly game. You had big plays all over the place from guys like Trey Palmer, David Moore. You had Cade Otton get 11 targets, 8 catches there. That had more to do with how bad the Philadelphia secondary was. And Detroit's secondary is abysmal, too. We can say all you want about Detroit being favored to win it, yada, yada, yada. I have Tampa Bay tickets because I do think Tampa Bay is very, very live defensively. I think they bring more to the table than what Detroit does in a lot of ways, schematically. But I think more so than anything, Rachaad White, this is just a spot where if they are down, or, I mean, they're not going to be up 32-9 or something like that here in this spot. The main reason that you have Rachaad White as massive value on some of these slates is that 4 or 5 target floor. Like, he gets a ton of targets in the passing game, gets some of those dump offs, and Detroit, they have a decent enough pass rush. I'm not going to completely decimate the entire defense, but like, I think Rachaad White is just very, very live for like a 7-8 target game. You get 4 or 5, you get in the box. Like, there's a lot of ways where I think he has a massive opportunity where Jahmyr Gibbs, he's in a timeshare very clearly. I know Chase Edmonds came in a little bit for Tampa Bay, but that game was so out of hand that I don't take as much from it as other people do. And I just want to play more White, more Evans here in this spot against a Detroit spot that I think is just going to breed points. I think there's going to be a lot of points in that one. So instead of going to the chalky Goff and having it run back with a bunch of cheap pass catchers there, I'm going more to the Tampa Bay side of things. So rip me, I guess.
No issues with White. I think when you're just looking at workloads, it's right up there. He's like comparable to Pacheco, in my opinion. Pacheco now, I think, has a better receiving workload than previously, just with McKinnon being out.
Agreed.
But yeah,
CH came in on a lot of third downs for what it's worth, like long yardage third downs in that game. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I know for a fact CH was on the field in third down, like long third downs, more than I was expecting in that game. But I guess it made sense.
Yeah,
it was
he played
negative
24
infinity
snaps.
degrees.
He played 24
he played
snaps.
quite a bit.
So yeah, I mean, it's not nothing. And he's going to see some pass game work. Pacheco, that is, for sure. Rachaad White won't see any. But the pass game work is a little bit better for Pacheco now that McKinnon's off the table. But yes, you're right. You'll see CEH at times.
Yep. Let's talk Devin Singletary here. 20% for him. I'm having a tough time figuring out what I want to do. And this is probably the guy that I want to talk to you about the most at the running back position, because you and I love him. I think he's been awesome to us from a fantasy perspective. Not saying that he's the best running back in the NFL. Otherwise, Buffalo would have just kept him. But I am saying that 20% is quite a bit for a team with a 17 Vegas total. And we know Baltimore can just stuff the run. He's got to get some passing volume. He's got to do some other things here. And I don't find a ton of like value at the running back position. This is definitely a position that I'm paying up for McCaffrey and then, random 6K player. But Devin Singletary gives you a little bit of savings. We'll get to Justice Hill next, but Devin Singletary, more or less than 20% of him.
More, and I'm kind of with you, man. Like, I don't feel good about this. It's hard not only because of the team total, but like Houston kind of ran away with that game. And they've won a lot of games down the stretch. We haven't seen a ton of Devin Singletary in negative game script. They still have Dare Ogunbowale on the roster. And he plays snaps. And he is exclusively a third down pass catching back. If this plays to the spread, my question is, what do we see snap-wise between Devin Singletary and Ogunbowale? Because Singletary does not have a fantastic pass game role. He's not been targeted a ton out of the backfield. Doesn't mean he can't do it. He's had games where he's popped up for reasonable target outcomes, but it's still a worry to me. And a lot of these other running backs we've talked about, you don't have these same concerns. You certainly don't with like a Rashad White. I think the concern is not quite as bad for like a Pacheco as it has been in previous weeks. So I don't know. He's also underpriced. I mean, for the workload he has been receiving, you can't deny that either. So right now I'm coming in a little bit above the field, but I'm really trying to keep this in check. It's not like I want 50% Singletary or something. And at the end of the day, he's a player that I don't want to just like bury me if he gets stuffed in this early game.
Daria Gubawale or Ty Johnson to win you $1 million?
I don't even
probably
want
neither.
$1 million.
I don't even want it in that scenario.
Gubawale has been in my life for so long. You went to Wisconsin. I hate him.
I know. Dare. Oh my Dare. Oh my Dare. We're not gonna sing. See what I did there? That was a little ballad for my friend Matt Gajewski there. Thank you so much. Anything else at running back? Because Justice Hill, he's just a dude who's down there gonna get some kind of receiving volume, 4,800. I'm okay getting to a little bit, but not going to be something that I'm making any kind of a stand on. Anybody down here, that is.
What do you think about the James Cook ownership? I guess there's two things. One is Gus Edwards and James Cook. I want to at least touch on those two guys before we move on. Where are you at with those two?
Pass on James Cook.
Pass on James Cook. It served you well last week for the most part.
Yep. I'm going to run it back. I just prefer everybody else in this. Like, Ty Johnson got 8 carries in that spot, and it was... I know it got like a little bit out of hand there at times, but it was within a score, 31-17, and 8 carries, 2 targets for Ty Johnson. It's not nothing. And we obviously know that there's the capability that somebody else from Buffalo could always show up and be in our lives, that RB3 of some sort. But like, I don't know. I have a tough time trying to figure out what exactly it is that's going on with Buffalo and why they have like Leonard Fournette in not must-win games, but like having the tush push there in week 18 for Josh Allen, and then you're bringing Ty Johnson in like key snaps. It was a little bit strange to me, I will say.
Yeah, and I mean, you didn't see Latavius Murray in the box score, but he still had 10 snaps, and he's carried plenty throughout the year. He was active. He was on the field for 10 snaps. It's not like Latavius Murray was just riding the pine. Plus, Allen runs a ton, especially around the goal line nowadays. So yeah, I'm with you on the risk. Just wanted to see where you were at there. Last interesting name is Gus Edwards. I mean, anytime you tie a team total like this to the Ravens without the QB sneak stuff, Baltimore doesn't do it. Like, there's tons of touchdown equity with Edwards. So that's interesting. I know they've got Justice Hill. It's definitely a committee there. Not expecting Dalvin Cook, but yeah, I don't know. Goal line roll for Baltimore is at least intriguing.
Let's carry ourselves on over, friends, to wide receiver. But first, our sponsor, we've got just over 20 minutes here until lock. Fire up Owner's Box right now, because they've been doing this nice little overlay thing for you all season long. Not just to stop by and say thank you, but like, there's so many sites that are charging 16, 17, 18, upwards of 19% rake, depending on where you're playing. That's egregious. They've been purposely giving you overlay all the live long day. It is incredible, the opportunity you have to make at Owner's Box that you don't have, maybe opposite of just like maybe satellites that don't fill over on DraftKings and FanDuel. That's about the only chance that you have of finding overlay on either one of those sites on a day-to-day basis. You find it every single main slate over at Owner's Box. You sign up at the link below, or the one that Mike Lawrence, our lovely producer Mike Lawrence, is going to throw into chat there for the people, and you're going to be able to win more money and have a higher chance and higher expected ROI, especially if you have the Sims tool, because the Owner's Box lineups you can make directly in the Sims tool as well. But that overlay is the key to the castle, my friends. You have an opportunity to head over to Owner's Box and play, knowing that it's not going to fill on a day-to-day basis. It is incredible. Also, in terms of the lineups, the kind of lineups you get to make, because you don't have to worry about defenses. You can play 2 quarterbacks within a lineup because it's super flex. Everything about Owner's Box is just better than what you're going to have playing in like your main $5, your main, the main milli maker at any of these other major sites. So check out Owner's Box in the link below or in chat as well. Take advantage of some of that overlay. It's how you build and sustain a bankroll. All of the states that is available with, easily available to you on that screen, or checking out Owner's Box there, ownersbox.com. Great opportunity, friends, to get in at a great site, one that's been alongside of us all season long. Check them out, please, in that link below, and get yourself a little bit of that overlay before it is too late. Alrighty, y'all. We continue to the wide receiver position, 20 minutes. Smash the like button too. That would be very lovely. And again, thank you to Owners Box for having us this entire NFL season. We're not done yet, though. We got the divisional round. We got the AFC, NFC championship games next week, and we got the Super Bowl, of course. But leading into that, Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, pretty damn popular. Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams, pretty damn popular. The three Detroit wide receivers here. How do we handle this chalky of a wide receiver core, Matt Gajewski?
I think you just want to avoid playing a full Detroit onslaught stack. If you play Josh Reynolds, you play Jameson Williams, I think it's enough. You can go and get contrarian elsewhere in your lineup. There's plenty of pivot points we already mentioned. The only thing I'm really trying to avoid with this Detroit team is like going full Goff, Reynolds, Williams, or like one of the two cheap guys, Amon-Ra and Goff. Stuff like that is what I'm really trying to avoid. Like these Detroit onslaughts, especially because it's 4 games. Like onslaughts on larger slates, no problem, especially if you're playing smaller field stuff. But man, a lot of people are going to be funneled into this naturally because Goff's going to be owned. Amon-Ra is the highest raw projected receiver on the slate. He's going to be jammed a lot. To do that, you need to play one of these guys. So just be careful. That's all I'm really trying to do with them. Still playing a fair amount. Just not trying to have them really end my day by any means. So I plan on coming in near the field with both Reynolds and Jameson Williams.
Yeah, I'm coming in right at the field right now. That could change just based on how John Mechie does in the early window. I have talked about him way too much. So we will get there. We will get there and actually have the explanation of what I'm looking at because it's going to be egregious what I'm doing. But there are some other chalky guys here at the top end, and let's go through them. Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs. I'll even throw Ayuk and Rashee Rice in there, 6,800 to 7,700. We have some high upside tournament options. Who is your favorite or favoritist, if you want to give us two, group of the bunch?
Favorites, Mike Evans facing Detroit's secondary. We talked about Baker a little bit. Love him here. But Mike Evans, I think, is coming in with reasonable ownership. I mean, I'm guessing you're going to see him somewhere between like 15, 20%. For a player of his talent, that's pretty low. And then you get a price break from Amon-Ra down to him. So we talked about this game a lot from the Detroit side. I think one thing you can do to just shave off like a ton of ownership here is just go Baker, Mike Evans. Like think about the gap in ownership you have going Baker, Mike Evans versus Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And if you do like a Baker Evans, something like that, sure, throw in like Reynolds or Williams as a run back. You already shaved off a ton of ownership and have considerable leverage. That's something I'm looking at quite a bit here. So yeah, I'm not trying to avoid this Detroit Tampa Bay game whatsoever. What I'm trying to do is just kind of play the other side and then use Williams and Reynolds as a cheap play with the uniqueness coming from Tampa Bay.
Yep, I'm completely with you on pretty much absolutely everything you just said. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, large part of my portfolio. I'm going to live or die, probably die because it's Baker Mayfield, but that's okay by me here in this spot. Again, it just has to do with what I think about Detroit secondary and their chances of success relative to what he's being owned. Jared Goff getting all of this attention. If that ends up to be true, I definitely like getting overweight to this Tampa Bay passing game here. Mike Evans, that is the big piece that I want to get to. Chris Godwin getting a ton of attention at 6,300 as we get into this next range. Zay Flowers, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed. The thing that I needed to have happen last week was not getting 0 from Jaden Reed, considering you and I were way overweight to Jordan Love. And I think I said something to the effect of like, I don't see Jordan Love completely decimating the Cowboys without Jaden Reed at least doing something. He did literally nothing. So that's exciting. I'm going to be playing him again this week, absolutely running it back. In this next range of guys, 5K up until Chris Godwin, who do you have here?
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. You know, like you see Jordan Love putting up these ridiculous numbers. And, you know, I've done this probably like 6 times this year where I go in our tools and I had a little bit of Romeo Doubs and I'm just like, I'm bringing Romeo Doubs down. Christian Watson's back. This isn't going to be the guy that makes or breaks my slate. So I've got all this Jordan Love stacked with Watson, Reed. I mean, a couple Bo Mountains, a lot of tight ends, but yeah, it's complete waste of my own Jordan Love. Anyway,
Musgrave. As soon as Musgraves caught that ball and ran, like I was just like, you got to be just absolutely effing me here because I thought I was going to win $1 million last week, but I'll just do it this week. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I hope you do, man. As far
I
as
hope
like
I do
the
too.
5,
Then we'll go to Wrigley Field. See you there.
Yeah, we're gonna get really nice seats. Anyway, for this range, like 5K to the upper 6K range, Explosive Godwin, not quite as much as Mike Evans. I think just the leverage Evans is going to offer you near the same price as like an Amon-Ra St. Brown is worth getting to. The 49ers guys are close in this range. I'm playing more Ayuk than Debo today. It's mainly just a price thing. Trying to jam McCaffrey as well in a lot of those lineups. Zay Flowers, I'm going to come in a little bit above the field to him. Not playing a ton of Lamar, so a lot of these are like one-off Zay Flowers or skinny stack Zay Flowers stuff with like a Zay and a Mechie. Not a ton of the QBs in that game. But it's not a range I'm hyper exposed to begin with. Some other players I don't have a lot of. I'll be below to Rashee Rice. When we get to tight end, you'll find out why. And then some of the other players in here, Stephon Diggs, not playing a ton of him. Yeah, the rest of the range is just pretty light for me.
All right, you ready for Hot Take Central? Are we ready to ride?
Does this have to do with Jaden Reed?
No, absolutely nothing to do with anything that we just talked about. I do have some Jaden Reed, but like it is what it is. I just wanted to tell you just how disturbing things are about to get for the next
this is a
5
Mechie
minutes.
Comment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be Mechie. It's going to be Mechie. It's going to be McCole Hardman. It's going to even be a little bit of, it's going to be even a little bit of Robert Woods in our lives. A little bit of an issue that I'm also having with some of these Baltimore guys. Rashad Bateman, I think, is in a pretty decent spot here. So Derek Stingley, can we agree probably one of the top 3 cornerbacks in football?
I'd have to think about it, but he's up there, yeah.
He's up there. Zay Flowers, he plays pretty much exclusively out of the slot, should be able to avoid some Stingley in his life, which is good here. Houston on the other side, I'm worried that Nico Collins just gets blanketed everywhere that he goes. And Baltimore's the kind of team that can actually do it correctly, and it can be a major problem. Now, CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, I'm not saying or trying to talk you off of getting to them by any means, but there's a reason CJ Stroud is projected where he is. This is a no-joke Baltimore defense, even without Humphrey. But. You got, first off, Rashad Bateman should be avoiding a lot of Stingley in some capacity here. Plays exclusively out wide. I think he's a guy at 4K that you want to be getting to. I also think Christian Watson is pretty intriguing at 4,200 here for Green Bay. You didn't see as many snaps, but they didn't really need to have him out on the field. So why put him in jeopardy after you get up massively there in that football game? They just played with a cushion, and they did things semi-correctly there until they decided to go to the backup instead of Jordan Love there. And it actually got hairy there for a second. But I'm looking at this 3-4K range, and I'm just peppering everybody who's unowned. John Mechie. I'm peppering McCole Hardman. And this isn't surprising when I have as much Christian McCaffrey as I do. But, like, there is so much volatility in some of these 4-5K players that it's like, why don't I go to the doldrums and take some shots on some of these guys? John Mechie was the wide receiver for the Texans who was on the field the absolute most last week. Yes, even more than Nico Collins. Again, I know it got out of hand towards the end to a certain extent as well, but, like, that's still something for John Mechie, who we didn't expect to have that kind of a role. No Noah Brown. There's been no Tank Dell forever. I think John Mechie is being trusted a little bit more here, and I think he is the best bet from this game, other than Zay Flowers. I got the over of that at 47.5. And I think anytime touchdown plus 600 is going to come through for the people. Am I an absolute insane person considering they have a 17 implied total today?
No, I mean, their implied team total wasn't very good against Cleveland last week. It was better than this week, but we've written off this Texans offense numerous times this year, myself included, to my own detriment. I'm not writing off CJ Stroud anymore, which is why I didn't want to pace the field and have like 1% of in my lineups. I'm going to have closer to like 10%. Yep. Right now with CJ Stroud, I'll just tell you, currently sitting at 7, which is something I'm trying to get a little higher, closer to 10. But anyway, as far as this relating to the receivers, I think you laid it out well. I'm looking for pivots off Reynolds and Williams in a lot of lineups where this is my leverage point. Mechie, I think, makes sense. We've seen a ton of horrific receivers get elevated by Stroud. Robert Woods has had competent games. There are people arguing that Noah Brown shouldn't even be in the NFL, and he comes up for plenty of decent games. You now have a second-round pick in John Mechie finally regaining form after his cancer diagnosis last year. So, yeah, I'm fine with Mechie. Talent should be there. Matchup is going to be hard. It is what it is, but he's 3.4K for a reason. As far as spraying the other guys, interested down here. One thing I'm doing is paying a little bit above the 4K range. I have quite a bit of Odell Beckham, a lot as a one-off. Like that game environment for Lamar. And he's been very vocal about wanting his snaps limited during the regular season in anticipation of the playoffs. We've seen that on a slow upward trend towards the end of the regular season. So I'm wondering if we don't see maybe like a 70% route share for Beckham in a game like this, where he's previously been parked around 55%. I don't know. It's at least something worth mentioning. You talked about Watson. I'm playing quite a bit of him, just above 4K. As far as the other dusty guys go, I'm not going to get there with Mecole Hardman. I would rather just pay the 300 for Justin Watson, who plays way more than him. Like, am I wrong on this? Like, he almost doubled him in routes.
Yep, I'm completely with you. Everything you said is correct. Justin Watson, I mean, I'm playing Mecole Hardman, though. I'm still playing Mecole Hardman. I have a problem.
I think I'm the one with the problem. I think he just sucks, and I've been known to X these players out.
There we go.
In the regular season, it was Pop Douglas. That actually worked out for me, but he's not attached to Patrick Mahomes, so we'll see how this one works out.
Yeah, just out of 3K, guys. I mean, Mecole Hardman helps me get access to certain things. David Moore, I think that was just a blip on the radar. One massive deep shot, and then, the other play that wasn't exactly a complete zero there. I think it was like another 10, 15-yarder, but I am far more inclined to play John Mechie because of what we saw those snaps to be. Again, up to 76% of the snaps. Like that is going to be good enough for me down sub 3,500, but I'll be overweight to it, and I will know whether or not I care about my lineups right after the first game. So that'll be an enjoyable experience. Khalil Shakir, I know that's another guy here pulling quite a bit of ownership. Him compared to Josh Reynolds. I mean, Khalil Shakir, half the ownership always sounds intriguing until you remember that Detroit is in a dome against Tampa Bay secondary, but Tampa Bay's defense has played a lot better given against two pretty cupcake matchups that we've seen here the last 2 weeks, Carolina, and then going up against Philadelphia, which just was in shambles. How are we feeling about Khalil Shakir versus Josh Reynolds?
I think Josh Reynolds is the better play straight up. Buffalo's been trying to run the ball. I think the defense is better on the other side in Kansas City. And you still have like options for this Buffalo attack. They had a bunch of players running routes last week. They can use 2 tight ends whenever they want to because of Kincaid and Knox. So I think you just like run the risk of him potentially being off the field more. I'd rather play Reynolds and Williams, but I don't feel super strong about it.
All right, we got some super chats for the people. Let's fire it up. Corey Shea, $4.99, and then we'll jump to tight end. Getting almost 75% of Mechie. Is that bad or have a better pivot? My brother, you have more than I do. That is terrifying to say out loud.
Not bad, but you're living dangerously. That is a very risk-tolerant profile.
I also like to live dangerously. Yeah, we're screwed. Fel Sensig, ranked Saturday only RBs. It is yucky. Yeah, no, it is very yucky here in RB land. I think Aaron Jones is probably your guy that isn't Christian McCaffrey, but
agreed. It's McCaffrey, Jones, and then I would go Singletary, Edwards.
Yep. There we go. Love that. Phil Senzig, thank you so much. Always see you here in the streets. And $5. Reynolds, Palmer, or more. Under 4K flex, DK GPP. So, again, I waited for all these cheapy wide receiver questions because this is a massive part of this slate. Pick 2, my friend. Reynolds, Palmer, or more.
Reynolds and Palmer.
That easily my 2. Malcolm Revamp, $1.99. If Moore beats me, he beats me. Malcolm Revamp, $1.99. I missed QB and running back discussion. Eric, who are you overweight on? Christian McCaffrey at running back. At quarterback, it's going to be a lot of Baker Mayfield and a lot of Brock Purdy. That is probably my 2 big stands. Most guys sitting at the field and then way underweight on one Jared Goff. Who are you going to be getting to the most at those positions, Matt Gajewski?
Largely the same as you. A lot of Baker. Purdy, love McCaffrey. Yeah.
Let's jump to tight end then here, my friend. You said you wanted to lead it off. I mean, this is obviously a Travis Kelce setup more than likely, but you said you were going to be under on Rashee Rice. Are we going to be jamming Travis Kelce now that he is 6K in a remember me spot?
Yeah, I am playing Kelce, and I guess what is the remember me spot? I didn't know that's
I don't know.
what we were. Didn't know that's what we were calling it, but yeah.
It's a cruel summer. Like I'm just going to sing Taylor Swift songs or something. I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, not a huge Taylor Swift guy, other than Love Story. So I don't know all the songs.
You're a big Love Story fan? You're like OG T Swift in high school?
That song is good and Trouble's good.
Captain, those are the only... I'm on the bleachers. A little bit of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can get behind those 2 songs. But anyway, yeah. Kelce, I mean, to see him come in cheaper than Rashee Rice, a bit surprising to me. Ownership for him is really low. The only problem is you got to stick him in your tight end slot. So then you're punting receivers and stuff, which doesn't feel great. But I like doing it for leverage, which is how I got there.
You want to talk leverage? Let's talk Cade Otton here, who ended up getting peppered with targets last week. 11 of them, 8 catches. I don't think he runs that back necessarily, but he's 3,500, whereas everybody else, I mean, I'm looking at about the same target volume for Cade Otton as just about everybody in that range above him. Like, Dalton Kincaid, I think, is a really good tournament option here. The consistency that we've had from him, the ADOT continuing to just get bigger and bigger, for lack of a better way of saying that. I know phrasing is a thing, so I apologize to everybody. But Cade Otton, I'm way overweight to him. You said Tucker Kraft, though, before this show started. So please tell the people you're Tucker. Oh, God. I mean, I have some Luke Musgrave because, again, I don't like myself, but here we are.
I've got a
tell
little
me
bit
what
of
you're
Luke
getting
Musgrave.
to the most. You have a little Luke Musgrave. Yeah, that's going to ruin us, too. But tight end, who else are you getting to? Whomever that might be.
Kittle, just attachment to San Francisco.
Seems good.
Ownership is reasonable. Kelsey, we already mentioned. Schultz, he comes in kind of in that middling no man's price range where I'd rather be over like an Otten or a Kraft, and Likely. Those are the main ones.
All righty. I don't think there's a lot to add to tight end here. I mean, we kind of covered it. Is there any cheapie? Because if Brevin Jordan does that thing where he's just a 2-yard out route and just runs it to the house and goes by everybody, again, I'm going to lose my gosh darn mind. That's for sure. That hurt. 2,700 for him this week. We're not chasing the Brevin Jordan back-to-back touchdown weeks, are we?
We are not. He barely played.
When that happened, I felt bad because somebody specifically asked us, and I'm like, I think Brevin Jordan is a terrible play. So, of course, he runs it 75 yards to the house.
Yeah, I'm sorry for whoever asked that.
Yeah, I
That's a big
besmirched you. Defense, do you have any takes? Because, I mean, I'm playing a ton of Buccaneers because they're the cheapest, a ton of Packers because they're cheap, but, like, I mean, what are we doing here? The Chiefs are going to be pretty popular. I think we might have them a little bit lower, 12.3% ownership coming in on them. The Ravens are the highest owned defense. I think that makes sense, but like 3,500 for a defense. You're not following my builds with McCaffrey and then X cheapy wide receiver. I'm doing that over and over and over and over and over like a Marshawn Lynch. But defense, highest owned defense and best tournament defense is?
Mine's the Bills.
Bills are showing up in the Sims tool a ton. Yeah.
The Bills did?
Yeah, the Bills are everything for me. So I'm saying I think the Bills in Kansas City end up way more popular at 2,800 and 2,700 because the Bills' defense has been much, much better as they've started to get healthier. And Kansas City's defense,
they got a million guys hurt last week. So we'll see. We're living risky here, but they make a lot of things work.
Yeah. Everybody's saying Kittle. Yeah, no, we like Kittle a lot.
I love Kittle.
Doubt about that.
He's my second most owned tight end. It's him and Kelsey.
Let's take it home, my friends. Again, smash the like button if you could. Again, we had nearly 2K people hanging out for the entire show, the entire duration of the show. We appreciate you as always. It's been awesome. Just smash the like button on the way out if you've enjoyed the content. If you've enjoyed the information, you don't have to enjoy the singing. I don't even like doing it. It's just I'm a sick person. Jamal Parker, $1.99. Hey, 20th super chat. Appreciate you, my guy. Highest exposed position, or highest exposed each position, he is saying. Quarterback, Matt. Highest known quarterback.
It's Purdy.
I have ever so slightly. Nope, I have Purdy a little bit more than Baker Mayfield. Running back.
McCaffrey. I guess other than McCaffrey, it's Rashad White.
Yep, we have the exact same two there. Oh, God, we're holding hands again. Wide receiver.
It's Mike Evans.
It's Amon-Ra St. Brown for me. I'm going to have him as a run back in just about everything. Tight end.
It's Travis Kelce.
It is George Kittle for me. And defense to take it home for the people.
Buffalo Bills.
Yep, you have the Bills. I end up having quite a bit of 2,500 Buccaneers. Again, I know that game is one I've talked about. Hey, it's going to shoot out constantly here. But you give me a 10% Tampa Bay defense. And, well, I took Tampa Bay for that one. I think, again, pick sixes are fluky. And, again, Baltimore's the only defense that I think we could get to the flip and see, oh, shit, they're 25% owned. So that's going to be one to definitely pay attention to, friends. But we're about 15 seconds away from lock. This was a phenomenal show. Happy to bring it to you on a Saturday, covering all of the four slates. Thank you to Mike Lawrence there behind the turntables. Chicka, chicka. Good stuff, my friend. Matt Gajewski, any final words for the people as we get out of here?
Yeah, guys, enjoy the games today. This is arguably the best football weekend of the year. Hopefully you guys take something down, make some money. Eric and I appreciate you all being here. Thank you for that. You allow us to do what we love every single weekend. So never take that for granted. Otherwise, good luck, everyone. We'll see you again soon.
It's pretty awesome. hanging out with you guys. Thank you so much for the love. Thank you. Let's go watch ourselves some football. Go follow him at Matt_Gajewski. Go follow me at Eric Lindquist over on X. I'm trying to give you great content there in the betting streets, in the DFS streets every single day. Until next time, friends, best of luck in the NFL streets this weekend.